are. When you grow up in the country like I do, you have some pretty interesting old farmer neighbors. And one of mine is a guy named Marvin Blair. And he said, "You can talk all you want, but after 10 minutes, I'm going to sleep, Darcy." So I'm glad we've only got 10 minutes, and hopefully none of you will Marvin Blair me. Well, like Shannon mentioned, I live on a farm between Lake City and Yetter. I always said that I would put Yetter on the map. It's got 35 people, and now you know that everything's better in Yetter. So I'm a fifth-generation farmer. We have a century farm that has been in our family since the early 1900s. And so I'm a lot like Shannon. What drives my passion is the fact that I grew up with this. It's a part of the fabric here in Iowa. And as I've gone through my career, I realized that there are so many Iowans, even in our small towns, that don't know the first thing about agriculture. And I don't fault them for that. I've been working in this industry as an ag journalist and marketer for over 15 years. And with the speed of change, it's moving so fast, it's really hard to keep up. So I figured my role with social media can be a bridge to help connect the farming audience with the non-farmers. And I'll admit, I drug my feet coming to the party here with the social media. I thought it was stupid for a long time. I thought this is for kids and losers that want to talk about I had a ham sandwich for lunch. And please don't waste my time. I'm a busy person and I don't want to waste other people's time. But when I took some social media training for one of my clients, who's the National Pork Board, I saw the light. And they told me that the main thing is that people are talking about you. What are they saying? So even if you're not on social media, other people are. What is the message that they're communicating about your industry? And I thought that's a good point. With farmers being less than 2% of the population, if people are out there talking about agriculture, what are these conversations and is the information accurate? So that's what spurred me to get more active on Facebook and on Twitter. And so in true writer, marketer fashion, I've come up with 5 key points that I've learned from my adventures in social media that might be useful as you folks take your social media adventures in your own unique directions. So first of all, use your story, whatever your personal story is, to connect to a larger audience. Really, in a million years, I never thought anybody would give a rat what goes on down on the farm in Yetter, Iowa. But they do, and it never ceases to amaze me. And like Shannon was saying, the thing we all have in common is whether we farm or whether we don't, is we eat 3 times a day, and I like to eat. And I love to cook. And I hope that other people can find some common ground with me when I share recipes and I talk about food from the farm. Oh, and by the way, I've got a really awesome chocolate cream pie recipe that I just came up with last week, so if any of you want it, let me know. I saw a stat one time that if you post most of your social media updates around 11 o'clock in the morning, you'll get the most response. And apparently I just drive people nuts because I'll put pie and all these good-looking recipes out there right before lunch, and I get criticism sometimes, "You're making me hungry." But at least I'm getting read, and that's exciting to know that. Number 2, I've touched on this a bit, don't waste people's time. I see so much garbage out there in social media, and I wish people would be free to develop a little bit more new content or share some useful content. I mean, the jokes and it's great, I enjoy all that, but it just gets tiresome. And I've had people tell me they actually look forward to my posts because I give them something of value. And what I try and do is, even if you're not passionate about beef or corn or whatever I'm talking about that day, I will try and come up with something like a link to a story that makes it relevant to your life. So maybe you don't care exactly what a beef producer is doing with his monoslope building, but maybe you do care a little bit about how agriculture pumps up the economy here in Iowa. So I will try and give my readers something that connects with them, whether they have a direct tie to the farm or not. Oh, and along those lines, I wanted to mention Twitter, because when I took some social media training at Farm Bureau, and you'll hear from my good friend Heather from Farm Bureau here in a minute, they talked about if we want to reach consumers with our message, we can't just be preaching to the choir. So agriculture, those of us that we get together a lot, we like each other's company, but farmers can't just be talking to farmers if we want to help other people understand farming. Twitter has been awesome because I talk a lot about nutrition, I talk about fitness. And when I put posts out there, I consistently am amazed at who starts following me on Twitter. I've got Muscle and Fitness Magazine. I've got physicians. I've got Beauty in Atlanta. I've got conservation groups. I don't always know what's triggering their interest in following me, but it's great because I can reach a wide audience of people I could never reach before, and I do it from my world headquarters on the farm in Yetter, Iowa. Blows my mind. Mix it up is point number 3. Just as in writing, they talk about rhythm. I never understood rhythm in writing for a long time, but basically it means you have long sentences and you have short sentences. You have that rhythm just like in music. It keeps it interesting. Well, I've found the same thing works with my posts on Twitter and on Facebook. Sometimes I might just have a cool little 2-sentence quote that really catches people's attention, hopefully. Sometimes I might write a little miniature book there and have a link to some more information. But I try and keep people guessing. I never want people to think, she's so predictable, I don't need to follow her, because her stuff's going to be the same every day. So mix it up. And then number 4, the value of microblogging. That kind of touches on what I said of writing a mini book. I have had people tell me that what I do is kind of like a little microblog, and they really like it. And you know, honestly, even though Shannon gives me credit for having a blog, I am the world's worst blogger, even though I'm a writer, because I spend all day writing for my clients. I never get around to updating my blog. I'm a complete social media failure in that respect. But what I have found that I can do is I can post something every day on Facebook and on Twitter. And so like this weekend, I had a thing out there about America Needs Farmers, because they had just had a big deal down at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City last weekend where farmers came in, they raised money and got food donations for the local food pantries. So I had my friend take a picture of me in my ANF, America Needs Farmers sweatshirt, and I put a little deal, a link out there talking about how much donations and food they raised during their drive over at Kinnick Stadium. And it was probably about this long, which is kind of long on a Facebook post, 3 or 4 or 5 sentences. But my gosh, that really tripped some people's triggers. They wanted to know, where'd you get that sweatshirt? So I really wish I had the rights to the ANF apparel, because I could be raking in the big bucks now, right? So ANF sweatshirt's the coolest thing around. If you need to know where to buy them, let me know. And then pictures rule, point number 5. I think everybody knows this, but Facebook is such a powerful medium for sharing pictures. And I drive my dad nuts sometimes. He's 74 years old. He's struggling to understand why we need to talk about what's going on the farm on social media. But I said, you know, come on, just play along with me. We're going to get a picture of you by the tractor or whatever. I think the most powerful lesson I learned about the value of pictures happened last fall. One of my neighbors called me up and they said, Darcy, get over here. You're on the southeast side of Lake City. The neighbors are all getting together to harvest a field for Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith had had a heart attack. He'd had heart surgery last summer. He just wasn't able to harvest his fields. Now, those of us in rural America know this is no big deal. It's very nice, but it's so common that we take it for granted, that everybody pitches in when someone needs some help. Well, I ran over there and I got a picture of 3 combines in the field and all the grain carts, and I put it out there on Facebook. By that afternoon, I had had people as far away as Pakistan saying, way to go, Lake City farmers. I couldn't believe it. People around the world, the Philippines, Pakistan, all across the country, were so touched by things we take for granted here in Iowa. So even the simplest things can resonate with people when you present them in the right manner. And finally, since I've covered my 5 tips, I feel like I owe you a little bonus tip here. Talking about surprising people one more time. How many of you know what a wiener wink is? All right, see, my Iowans that grew up in small towns, we know what wiener winks are. Well, what they are, they're a hot dog wrapped in cheese, wrapped in a piece of white bread. They actually are kind of good, probably have no redeeming health value, but they taste pretty good. And so, like I say, we take for granted what we know here in Iowa. So I'm at the local hospital last fall, and they were having wiener winks for lunch. I said, can I take a picture of your wiener wink? And they looked at me. I said, yes. So I put this picture out there, and I had all these people say, what is that? And we got in this huge discussion about wiener winks, and then I found out people in Texas don't know what tater tot casserole is. Wow, it just opens up so many possibilities. So just throw the crazy stuff out there once in a while, too. Have some fun with social media. So yes, I think people, they never know what to expect from me. One day I'm all buttoned up like this at a conference. The next day I've got the work boots on and I'm out in a tractor doing some field cultivation. So it's fun. If you'd like to follow my crazy adventures on the farm, I'm at Darcy Maulsby out on Twitter, and I'm at Darcy Doherty Maulsby on Facebook. So follow me, send me a friend request. I'd love to stay in touch. And can I answer any questions from any of you about farming and microblogging and social media? It is between Lake City and Yetter. It's in Calhoun County. So from right where I'm standing to my driveway is about 115 miles northwest of here. Oh, sure. Yep, you're on my current stomping grounds, yeah. I used to live down here by Granger, and I was always so sorely disappointed that people in Des Moines didn't even know where Granger was. So I know I live in the frontier now that I'm back in Calhoun County. Yeah. My favorite part of my day is when I either get to cook something new and share the recipe out on Facebook, or just being able to go out onto social media just for fun and see what everybody else is talking about. That is such a great resource. Like I say, there's a lot of garbage at times out there, but as a writer, I get inspiration from the things that people say. I am totally ripping off a phrase that a guy just casually threw out there. He said, "When in doubt, err on the side of gravy." And I thought, oh, as a food writer, that's so awesome. I could say err on the side of pork, err on the side of beef, whatever, but people say the greatest things on Facebook sometimes and Twitter, and they don't even know it. So I'm always trolling for ideas. Oh, fantastic. Great, great.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.